Hey guys, Mark Allen, BHSpringSolutions LLC and BHSpringSolutions.com, back again for another session of High Power University. And today we are talking about the High Powers trigger pin. The trigger pin is right there, and it shows up again on this side right over here. And this pin is often a real beast to remove. And in fact, BHSpringSolutions markets a two-punch tool trigger pin removal system, so you can safely remove this pin to do whatever needs to be done, whether that's cleaning or replacing springs or replacing the trigger. And in order to fully remove, we have a step 1 punch, we have a step 2 punch. This one's to get the pin to move at all. This one's to get the pin to move below flush with the frame safely with a rubber grommet. Then a 3/32 pin punch to drive the pin all the way out of the frame. And then I like to make myself a tool using a random big punch upside down with a piece of Gorilla tape on the bottom of it, wallowed out in the middle. It kind of helps, and that is to reinstall that pin without doing damage to the frame on this side. And this is kind of one of the kindest and gentlest ways to do that. So anyway, lots of tools to remove the pin, lots of effort to get the pin out and put it back. And after, and it just varies from high power to high power, but after some removals and reinstalls of this pin, you wind up with what I have here. And just that pin that used to take all that effort to get in and out, now it won't stay securely in the firearm when I reinstall it. As you see, I'm just pushing it back and forth. A new FN Browning trigger pin, that's what I've got here, it doesn't help. It's not a solution. It's virtually as loose as the one that I have here. Why are we dealing with this? Well, I want to kind of give you the long short version. The long short version is the P35 high power was derived from the 1927 Grand Rendiment, which was John Browning's last firearm. He mounted a similar trigger subassembly to what we know of as today in the high power, sort of similar, but his had an integral axis that acted as the pin. In other words, the pivot was part of the trigger, not something that the trigger hung on. So the whole trigger, including its axis that mounted in the frame here. And this installed as an assembly and without any kind of a pin and without any special tools at all. So going from that scenario to the P35, I don't know how exactly to say this nicely, except if John Browning hit home runs with the 1927 Grand Rendiment, I personally think he hit home runs all the way through that firearm. Dieudonné saves effort to mount a trigger into a high power. This is really a bunt, I guess you'd say. It's definitely not a home run. Some people would call it a foul ball. In essence, I'm kind of stuck, here. I have a pin that works like this. A lot of people mistakenly think that this little area right here in the pin is so the trigger return spring keeps the pin in the gun. It's not. That channel is to give your trigger return spring with the original trigger subassembly in the high power some margin so that it doesn't just lock itself up by pressing the trigger return spring against the trigger pin. So what do we do with this? Probably the best solution that we at BHSpringSolutions have seen for this is an alternative designed trigger pin, and I want to show you the difference here. This is an FN Browning trigger pin. It's pretty much a smooth pin from front to back. end to end. Then we have a different kind of looking pin here, and it's essentially the same pin, with the exception of there's about 2.5 millimeters right here you're going to notice, and this end has what I consider to be self-tightening fins of the pin, and those are going to sort of semi-collapse and allow the pin to be installed, and it's going to be tight. This will uninstall with sanity. Reasonable amount of effort will uninstall it. Reasonable amount of effort will install it as well. And I'm going to show you just kind of how that works out here in just a moment. But this is a solution for guys who have found that their frame doesn't any longer have a tight enough relationship with a standard trigger pin. This is really not your fault, guys, that you have a trigger pin loose situation in the high power. This was really, this was not a touchdown. This was a punt that may have gone backwards, actually, when you think about it. Primarily because this pin can't be permanent. Everything inside of an original trigger subassembly in a high power can't be permanent. We've shown that these springs wear out. Specifically, the magazine disconnect spring wears out. The affirmative positioning of the trigger lever, after years and years and years, can start to be compromised so that it doesn't position properly or as decisively. So this pin had to be made so it could be removed, because it's a service point that, sooner or later, it's inevitable, it's a necessity, it's got to be removed. The bad thing about it is it's not a John Browning design, something that you can take apart and put back together and do it, to infinity, and nothing ever really changes. That's not the case here. This pin gets progressively looser and looser as you go. And by the way, this pin with the fins, it's going to do the very same thing. Give it 6, 8, 10 installs and uninstalls. It's going to do the same thing. The important thing that you want to do is, as you upgrade your high power, or as possibly you install something like the new BHSpringSolutions advanced trigger for high power pistols, you want to use this pin that I'm showing you. I won't be getting rid of that. That pin is handy because what I'll do is, as I'm trying out different trigger return springs, tuning to get the desired trigger break weight and reset that I'm looking for, I'll use this pin, and it's already loose, and we'll install it temporarily, do any of our testing, and see if we like it, see if the setup that we have is the one we want. Then we'll remove that pin, and of course this one's become very easy. We'll remove that pin, and I'm gonna grab this again. I want to show you, this is a brand new FN Browning trigger pin, and we're going to put that in there quickly. You see how easily that one went in? That's a brand new pin, and I'm pushing it in and out the same way as I was the original pin. So that's really not a suitable solution for me. Now that I've got everything in this handgun, the setup is all the way I want it, the spring, I've chosen the spring, I like it, the reset's good, everything's the way I want it. Now it's time, I'm going to button this high power up for a while, and I'm going to use my BHSpringSolutions high power. I think of it as a self-tightening trigger pin. It's really a specialty pin, but this is going to become my permanent or a secure pin, because it's going to be secure. So we're going to go ahead and follow the trigger pin punch out with this pin, and then we'll show you. Okay, now we pounded, we got right to the part of the pin where the fins are. That's exactly what we would expect. Now from here, the first time that this is installed, that's going to be snug, quite tight. And of course that's what we want. We want this to be a very, very secure kind of a pin. So I use the Gorilla Tape here. Keeps my just helps encourage keep that in position. Now I'll come back and very, very carefully I'll level that pin just a little more and do that with the tool that I was just using. Now there's just no doubt about this pin. Very, 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 it's not going to be pushing itself out. Very secure now, and it'll make a good permanent installation for me. You know, multiple times in and out. This one's it'll remain tight for several times in and out. But again, with any trigger pin in the high power pistol, the more you take that pin in and out, the more that you're going to find this relationship, because this is just not, it is neither sophisticated planning nor is it sophisticated design work, quite frankly, to have a pin that, you know, surely they had to have a special tool to mash this pin in at the factory to bring it right to flush and never scratch a pistol. They had to have used some kind of a special press or something similar. But this pin solution, this is a lifesaver for a lot of high power pistols where the trigger pin has gotten loose over time. Thanks for watching this episode of High Power University. I'm Mark Allen, BH Spring Solutions LLC and BHSpringSolutions.com.